In Season 21, Episode 22, The Bob Next Door of the hit television show The Simpsons, we learn that the town of Springfield's economy is on the decline and is officially worse than Detroit's. This makes me wonder many things. Why is the economy so bad in Springfield? Was it ever any good? What does the economy even really look like? And what is a Detroit? I will attempt my hardest to answer 3 out of 4 of these questions, and if I have time, tackle the 4th. Because when you watch the many seasons of The Simpsons, you see a pattern of workers being exploited, monopolies, low wages, and just an economy run by idiots that is utterly confusing. And in this video, I'm gonna talk about it. Let me explain. To understand why Springfield feels so economically unstable, we first need to establish what it actually is on paper. Based on various throwaway lines throughout The Simpsons, Springfield's population hovers around 40 to 60,000 people. This places our town firmly in the category of a small American city. Not necessarily some country town, but also not a bustling metro area, just some place you drive past on the highway, and very quickly noticed due to the very insanely large nuclear power plant. Now, culturally and visibly, it feels very Midwestern, Rust Belt even. There's a mix of modern suburban neighborhoods, aging industrial infrastructure, and a long history of failed and successful economic adventures. If we compare Springfield's size to real-world cities, it aligns closely with smaller industrial towns that were heavily dependent on 1 or 2 major employers, something Springfield is very familiar with. These kind of cities boomed during America's manufacturing peak and then struggled when those industries declined. Their economy is literally built for a different era of our American society, and all of these things apply to our fictional city of Springfield. Throughout the show's lore, we see evidence of a mid-20th century manufacturing backbone. There are references to a candy factory, a steel mill, a firework plant, a box factory, and various other stupid and nonsensical consumer good producers. This was very much a blue-collar city where everybody could find a well-paying job in one of the many industries. If this sounds familiar, that's because it literally is the exact reality of many cities like Detroit, Cleveland, or Gary during the height of America's industrial expansion. Springfield truly was a perfect place for you to settle down with your family of 2, 1 dog, 2 cars, and an abnormally sized house. So, what exactly happened that made everything go so wrong? Well, this is The Simpsons, which means something stupid and really bad for Springfield has to happen eventually, and that came with the Aqua Car. In one of the show's flashbacks, we see Springfield becomes the birthplace of man's greatest invention, the Aqua Car. Never heard of it? Strange, it's very famous. A hybrid vehicle that functioned both as a car and a boat. It truly revolutionized travel across land and water, because again, it was both a car and a boat. It also turned Springfield in an economic paradise and national sensation overnight. The city began to, of course, respond to this overflow of money and fame accordingly by paving the roads in solid gold. Not cleaning up the toxic waste lakes or looking at a better education system. No, of course not, because solid gold roads show style. Now, sadly, this doesn't exactly last. Why so? Well, the Aqua Car was a massively, amazingly popular car that murdered hundreds of thousands of people. This is because the vehicle explodes after 600 miles. This was not very good for Springfield, and sadly, the city never recovered. Now forced in an economic turmoil by both just America changing and the industries they relied on dying off, but also, of course, not having any money after paving the city in gold and being seen as the worst, most mean, horrible, evil, stupid town in America, Springfield really wasn't looking good. Now, when talking about Springfield's economy, you have to mention one thing: the Springfield nuclear power plant, the basically sole employer in Springfield for 99% of the people. Owned by Mr. Burns, the plant controls both the city's primary energy supply and the primary source of stable, middle-class jobs. We consistently see Homer, Lenny, Carl, and hundreds of other background characters employed there. It's very clear it's the backbone of the city's labor market. That is very concerning for a few good reasons. The first one being that there's just no competing large-scale industries offering comparable jobs to this mega power plant, and really in modern-day Springfield, there are no jobs in general that we considered middle-class other than the power plant. What remains instead is a service-heavy economy, retail shops, Moe's Tavern, the Kiwi E-Mart. Basically plenty of jobs for teenagers and just smaller income roles, but nothing that could pay like the nuclear power plant. Sure, we got public sector jobs like the elementary school and police department, but these jobs are only in such limited numbers and are underfunded due to this horrible, stupid government. Economically, this resembles something called a monopoly. A monopoly exists when there is a single dominant employer in a labor market, meaning workers have limited alternatives. When employees cannot easily leave for better paying jobs, the the things they can ask for and what they are forced to put up with changes a lot. An employer now holds unfair leverage over wages, benefits, and can basically hold an employee hostage at a job because where else could they go? This is sadly a perfect description of Springfield, which is of course very sad for its citizens, but nevertheless, it's not the end of their problems. What makes it even more telling of the bad economy is how the city responds to falling into this very unfortunate financial place, being with very strange, ineffective, or at least long-term, financial stimulants. One of the clearest examples occurs when Mayor Quimby legalizes gambling in the attempt to fix the economy. The pitch is quite simple. Casinos will bring tourism, generate tax revenue, and create jobs for many. But almost immediately, Mr. Burns opens a casino of his own, capturing a massive share of the new industry, because this man cannot fathom the concept of not being the sole employer of this city. But even with this, it still brought revenue to the city, construction jobs, and buzz outside of it, which is really needed due to the lackluster reputation Springfield has. But the long-term effects are sadly less glamorous. The major one is everyone in Springfield developing a crippling gambling addiction, or of course horrible wealth concentration only going up with Mr. Burns expanding his horrible net worth, basically making the dynamic unchanged and that the same man has control over all the jobs and money flow. This mirrors real-world Rust Belt cities, like I said before. They have also tried small quick fixes like legalizing gambling, but quickly found their efforts did not turn them into Las Vegas overnight. Springfield repeats this pattern again when it legalizes same-sex marriage, not because they wanted to be moral and give their people the right to marry, but to attract tourism. And it somehow worked. The town was filled with the gays as hotels were booked out for wedding destinations, because everyone knows getting married in the town with the world's most dangerous nuclear power plant is the place to do it. But again, sadly this bill doesn't exactly fix their economic problems. Eventually the big boom goes down, as in the end this town's reputation is just that bad, and they don't exactly have much going for them against all their many problems. Now there are plenty more failed business ventures and financial attempts at saving Springfield in the show, but they all end the same, with no long-term result, because Springfield will never recover from the Aqua Car. It will never be in the same place it was when it all had all the many successful factories and businesses, as the economy of the world and where these industries exist is just not the same. And as long as the nuclear power plant continues running, nothing's gonna change, because the stranglehold Mr. Burns has in the economy and just the politics of Springfield is too strong to save. But that isn't the end of the economy of Springfield, because I'd like to move over to the actual government that runs this place and try to unveil the very poor choices and corruption not very hidden that is for sure ruining any attempt at a functioning economy. Let me explain. Throughout The Simpsons, the city government is portrayed as being in a near constant state of trouble and always being run by idiots. For example, Springfield goes bankrupt more than once. During these times, public services are almost always slashed in ways that feel very strange. Dead animal removal is one thing that was removed during a financial crisis that apparently is a high-spending area for Springfield's local government. The school day was also shortened to save money in another episode where there is a budget crisis, and in the same episode, prisoners are released early because the city cannot afford to house them. Crime is openly ignored when enforcement becomes too expensive, and other ridiculous choices from our great, amazing Springfield government. Making the issue far worse is when you look at the leadership itself. Mayor Quimby, for example, he's just straight up openly corrupt. Public funds are constantly misused, campaign money flows in obviously illegal ways, and just countless crimes and many mistakes that are only hurting the poor economy of Springfield. Now, another problem that is definitely not helping our economy is a little habit that people have of not paying their taxes. Citizens are routinely depicted attempting to avoid paying their taxes, or just straight up not doing it. It's said that Mr. Burns may be the only one who pays his taxes in the city, which is really surprising, and the only time in this video I don't have an example of a real-world place that does that. I guess there's only so much realism you can find in a cartoon about a family of yellow psychopaths that strangle their children. Now, throughout all of this, I was interested in maybe looking at what the actual pay is for working at the nuclear power plant, and thankfully we can figure this out because, well, the show tells us through background details that the internet has laid out for me very clearly. Homer Simpson's hourly wage is shown at $11.99 on one of his paychecks. That translates to roughly $24,000 per year before taxes at a full-time hours. Adjusted for inflation, that figure lands somewhere around the high $30,000 range in today's dollars. Even with adjustments, that places Simpson's household below the modern median household income in the United States, and Homer is employed in what was arguably the most stable sector in the entire city. This is very concerning. That what makes it even more confusing because he owns a very sizable house, 2 cars, and his wife does not work, even though he again makes $30,000 a year and spends millions on snacks and beer. But he is again in the most stable, comfy position he could be, compared to other jobs for Springfield citizens, like working at Moe's or the mall, or being one of the many underpaid teachers at the school. Yeah, not great. Reoccurring unemployment is also pretty common. Many characters cycle through jobs, even Homer does. We never see characters like Homer, for example, rise in the corporate ladder, at least for more than an episode. This is not good for the economy of Springfield. But this doesn't make me want to talk about the true problem of the economy, because we don't see how it affects Springfield with someone like Homer. He has a relatively good life, a cushy, nice, high-paying for Springfield job, and well, a literal house. But there are areas in Springfield that are not doing good, and then there are places where the millionaires live, feasting off the backs of the poor and hungry people. Let me explain. At the very top of the economic ladder sits an ultra-wealthy elite class that is comically small but absurdly powerful. Mr. Burns is the obvious centerpiece of this class, owning the nuclear power plant and other random businesses. But he actually isn't alone. Krusty operates many businesses and would have a net worth in the millions, falling very much aligned with the elite class. Springfield is also home, of course, to its rich politicians and just random folks who shouldn't have money but do. Now, you would think these people would contribute to a functioning good economy, but no, they don't at all. Hey, I told the economy is confusing. Now, below them, the drop-off is steep. Springfield contains trailer parks, junk-filled districts, and neighborhoods that are underfunded. Unemployment is very common in these areas, and we see families with signs of generational poverty, meaning most characters don't really escape their economic position. The gap between the top and bottom, simply put, is enormous and ever-consuming, and the inequality is the literal backbone of the economy. And importantly, policy decisions within The Simpsons tend to benefit those at top. When gambling is legalized, who opens the casino? Mr. Burns. Because anytime the city itself tries to improve the economy, the people who are truly benefited are the rich, never the working class. This city really needs to start a literal revolution or something, dear God. Well, actually, they do that every episode. To finish off our real-world comparison, Springfield as well, not looking good. Being, of course, a Rust Belt city with inequality all over, and while in these rural cities, things are not very good. Usually due to a passive industry and a modern day of not industry, these places struggle heavily, and looking at The Simpsons, Springfield fits right in, sadly being maybe the literal worst economy of any major city in the United States. Oh my god. And that is the confusing economy of The Simpsons. What did we learn? Mr. Burns is evil, Homer should have a house, and overall, Springfield is not looking good. But hey, maybe another scheme will fix things. I heard the car industry really needs a vehicle that can drive on land and air. I'm sure that will not end in disaster. If you'd like more videos like this, click on this playlist right here for my overanalyzing the economy and money of nostalgic shows, or this one which YouTube thinks you'll like. Either way, bye!